Kurdistan is a loosely defined region in the Middle East in which the Kurdish people make up a sizable chunk of the population. The Kurds themselves are generally considered to be the largest ethnic group without a state. There have been many attempts over the years to establish a lasting state for the Kurds, however none have lasted for long. Since the 1990s, Kurds living in Iraq have established their own structures of government which have functioned as what some have called a quasi-state, called the Kurdish Regional Government. This video will look at to what extent the Kurdish regional government is politically developed. Political development shall be defined as the process of addressing PI's 6 crises of political development: identity, legitimacy, penetration, participation, and distribution, alongside exhibiting the hallmarks of modern democratic states, such as the rule of law, peaceful transition of power, and democratic consolidation. In 1946, a Republic of Kurdistan was declared in modern-day Afghanistan. This lasted for just less than a year. However, its founder and president, Mustafa Barzani, was from modern-day Iraqi Kurdistan, and when the republic collapsed, he returned to the region to continue to fight for Kurdish autonomy. Barzani went on to be the leader of the Kurdish Democratic Party. Mustafa's descendants are still very important in Iraqi Kurdistan. His son, Masoud Barzani, has been the president of Iraqi Kurdistan since its foundation, and the current prime minister is Mustafa's grandson. Members of the Barzani family also hold key cabinet positions and own major enterprise in the region. While political dynasties are not uncommon in Western democracies, the absolute domination of the Kurdish nationalist movement by one family is incomparable in scale and is in danger of resembling a pseudo-monarchy. In 1988, the Iraqi government conducted a campaign known as Al-Anfal, in which hundreds and thousands of Kurds and other minorities in the region were systemically killed. It's therefore unsurprising that during a ceasefire in the Gulf War, the Kurds were among the groups that rose up in popular revolt against the Saddam regime. Saddam's response was brutal and immediate, leading to the displacement of thousands of Kurds. The US responded by establishing a no-fly zone over Iraqi Kurdistan, enabling the creation of the Kurdish regional government by the 2 major political powers in the region, the Kurdish Democratic Party and the Kurdish Union of Patriots. The Kurdish regional government allowed for the creation of trade unions, youth groups, and media agencies, and the general expansion of individual freedoms. However, the issue remains that while there are political parties, these parties have a near monopoly on public discourse. Each operates their own divisions of Peshmerga militia, which are run separately through internal party structures of politburos, making the politicians and the militia more accountable to their own party than they necessarily are to the public. In 1994, tensions between the 2 parties were such that the administration split in 2, and Iraqi Kurdistan was plunged into an internal conflict lasting until 1998. This demonstrates that the Kurdish regional government's institutions were too weak to act as an organ of deliberation and compromise. This was in part due to aid agencies working through the parties rather than the Kurdish regional government itself, leading to the Kurdish regional government to be full of bureaucrats who were completely removed from the processes of aid and welfare delivery, and the parties to become used to functioning as regional power brokers. This represents a failure to address the issues of penetration, participation, and integration. The Kurdish regional government was so undermined by other actors and groups that it did not function as a true government. In order to combat the Islamic State, the Peshmerga were incorporated together and placed under the command of the president. While legally this had been the case since the Kurdish regional government's foundation, in practice they had previously still operated under the authority of the parties. They had, prior to the war with ISIS, been accusations of the parties using the Peshmerga heavy-handed in order to exert control. However, it's difficult to know if the Kurdish Democratic Party and Kurdish Union of Patriots will return to being the primary command structures of the Peshmerga once the conflict is over. The issue of the Peshmerga will be a major issue for Iraqi Kurdistan's political development moving forward. A non-partisan standing army is vital for a stable state. In the most recent round of elections in Iraqi Kurdistan, we saw the first instance of political change occur. A new party, Movement for Change, with no paramilitary or historic tribal links, came out of a wave of anti-corruption protests and won a number of seats from the Kurdish Union of Patriots, becoming the 2nd largest party. This demonstrates, at least in part, some level of breaking down of the political monopoly enjoyed by the Kurdish Democratic Party and Kurdish Union of Patriots. The turnout in the Kurdish regional government's elections have been incredibly high. In presidential and parliamentary elections, turnout has been around 80% of eligible voters, a level of political engagement that eclipses most Western democracies. In 2014, in reaction to forces belonging to the Islamic State capturing Mosul, the Iraqi government withdrew its military from Iraqi Kurdistan, leaving the Kurdish regional government's Peshmerga to defend its own territory. In some respects, this can be be seen as Iraq demonstrating through physical action that they view Iraqi Kurdistan as a territory they own, rather than a formal part of their country. The Iraqi Peshmerga, under the command of the president of the Kurdish regional government, had become the standing army, with a monopoly of the execution of legitimate force in the region and the goal of defending Iraqi Kurdistan from existential threats. In response, President Barzani called for a referendum on independence for Iraqi Kurdistan. The issue of independence is very complicated, and it's unclear how Iraqi Kurdistan would benefit. However, due to the domination of public discourse by the political parties, there's been little debate on the subject, and the public are expected to vote on an issue where they're incredibly uninformed of its merits. President Barzani has been accused of using this referendum to distract from his own political dealings and prolonging his term in office. These political dealings include preventing the legislature from sitting using the Peshmerga after they requested a ballot to appoint a new president, as Barzani had stayed beyond his term length and the war with the Islamic State made a national ballot impossible. Barzani's supporters claim that if negotiations with the parties are not successful by March of 2017, then he will stand aside and a fresh election will be held in which he will not be a candidate. The peaceful transition of power is fundamental for the creation of a modern democratic state. As of yet, the Kurdish regional government has been ruled by Barzani and his party for the entirety of its existence. He seems unwilling to hand over power. The situation has been described by some as a regressive step for the dream of a truly democratic Kurdish republic. Corruption within Iraqi Kurdistan, particularly around the Barzani family and the ruling Kurdish Democratic Party, is a major issue. One of the main reasons for the movement change's success was their highlighting the lack of transparency around revenues generated by oil within Iraqi Kurdistan. The Barzani family dominate significant political roles and major industry, and while it's true that having a large influential family isn't a crime, the sheer domination of the Barzani family and the potential for corruption is problematic. Until the KUP were supplanted by the movement for change, the KDP and KUP operated in permanent coalition, effectively being a political cartel. The two parties agreed not to compete with one another and not to oppose one another politically. The issues of the potential for corruption, the nepotism, and the non-competition of parties are hugely problematic for furthering the political development of Iraqi Kurdistan, as a truly democratic state should operate primarily through mandates and merits, not cosy agreements and family connections. To conclude, Iraqi Kurdistan has achieved a significant amount of political development since its foundation. New freedoms have been allowed for its people and new movements for political change are emerging. However, there remain a number of major issues. The Peshmerga are yet to be fully incorporated within the government rather than operating as armed wings of the political parties, and we are yet to see a peaceful transition of power between regimes. The scale of corruption and nepotism within the government are also far too widespread.